So those notes are just the prerequisite to what 7th grade will entail or what 7th grade will look like. So you have to be able to be fluent. You have to be able to know how to do those operations and what those operations mean in order to first decipher the problem. So before we can even decipher it, we have to be able to know how to use those notes, and we know how to complete the process. So now we're going to go over what some 7th grade level questions would look like and how these notes will apply. So once again, I'm going to read the question. If you'd like to try it on your own, go ahead and click pause, but then afterwards I will solve the problem. Jessica went to the store and purchased a box of cereal for $3.75, milk for $1.50, and two loaves of bread for $2.25 each. She paid with a $20 bill. How much change did she receive? So to answer these questions, we have to use our real-world knowledge to help us figure this out. So Jessica went to the store and bought a box of cereal, she bought some milk, and she bought loaves of bread. She paid with a $20 bill. How much change did she receive? So first off, we have to understand what our question is asking. Is our question asking us how much money did she spend? If that was the case, we would add up all the totals and we would be done with it. But the question's not asking that. The question is asking how much change did she receive? So we have to think back. Well, how do we solve for our change? What is change? Well, change is the amount of money that we get back after we're done paying. So first off, we have to understand how much are we starting with? She's starting with $20. And if we think she's going to the store and she's going to purchase cereal, she's going to purchase milk and bread, what is she going to get more money or is she going to lose money? Well, if she was going to the store to buy stuff, she would be losing money. So what operation would we use to help us understand how we are going to lose money? Well, that would be subtraction. So we're going to subtract. Let's look at what she bought. $3.75 for milk. So right now, not milk. If she buys the cereal and we spend $3.75 and we use the $20 bill, the change that we would receive after purchasing the cereal would be $16.25. But that's not all she bought. She also bought milk for $1.50. So once again, she's spending money. So we're going to subtract again. So now, after she's bought her cereal, she's bought her milk, she would have $14.75 in change if she paid with a $20 bill. But she's still not done purchasing stuff at the store. So she buys loaves of bread for $2.25 each. So she bought 2 loaves of bread for $2.25 each. We have to ask ourselves, does that mean she paid $2.25 altogether for the bread? Or are there 2 pieces of bread and she paid $2.25 for one, and then she paid another $2.25 for another one? Well, it would be the second one. She bought 2 loaves of bread for $2.25 each. So the first one cost her $2.25, and the second one cost her $2.25. So once again, we're going to complete the same process. So if she's going to buy a loaf of bread, she's going to spend money, so we're going to subtract. We're going to subtract $2.25. A lot of students would stop right here because we've subtracted $2.25 one time. That is after 1 bread. But we know when she went to the store, she bought 2 loaves of bread, so we're going to have to subtract $2.25 a second time. So once we've subtracted the $2.25 the second time, we're going to be left with $10.25. So that's going to be our final answer. We started out with $20. She spent $3.75. She spent $1.50. She spent $2.25 and another $2.25. She didn't use all her money, so she would get $10.25 back in change. Number 2, Nicholas has 5½ cups of flour. The recipe for a cake he is making calls for 3 3/4 cups of flour, and he also needs 8 cups of flour for a cookie recipe. How much more flour will Nicholas need to make the cake and the cookies? So once again, pause if you want to try it on your own, and then click play when you're ready to. So as I was saying earlier, this TEK 7.3a and b has to do with fluency of operations of rational numbers. Once again, rational numbers can be decimals, they can be negatives, they can be fractions. So we also have to be fluent with fractions. And I like to think that we're pretty good at setting the foundation of multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting fractions. But now that it's coming into a two-step word problem is where the 7th grade level comes into play. So first thing we have to know is, what do we have? Nicholas has 5.5 cups. That's what he has. He is making a cake that calls for 3 3/4 cups. So we have to know, what does call for mean? That means he needs 3 3/4 cups of flour, and he also needs 8 cups of flour. How much more flour will he need? So how much more, I'm going to circle that, is a clue for a subtraction problem. But once again, the difficulty in 7th grade is we're moving it from 1-step to 2-step problems. So I'm just going to write this down right now. Nick has 5.5 cups. Over here, I'm going to write he needs, well, we need 3 3/4, but he also needs 8 cups. So how are we going to find out the total amount that he needs? This is where the 2-step problem comes in. Before we can figure out how much more he needs, we have to figure out the total of how much there's got to be in the first place. So how are we going to find how much total flour he's going to use for the cookies and the cake? We're going to add them together. So 3 3/4 cups plus 8 cups. And that will give us 11 3/4 cups. So Nick has 5.5 cups, and he needs 11 3/4 cups. So how much more does he need? That is where our second step, our subtraction, comes in. So now we're going to set this up like a regular subtraction problem. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to do 3/4 minus 1/2. Now we can't do that because they don't have the same denominator. So what we have to do is we have to make them have the same denominator. And the way we're going to do that is by using the butterfly. So to do the butterfly, we're going to go ahead and do this. 3 times 2 will give us 6. 4 times 1 will give us 4. And for the denominators, 4 times 2 will give us 8. So I'm going to rewrite this as, instead of 11 3/4, this 3/4 turns into 6/8. Instead of 1/2, this 1/2 turns into 4/8. So now we can go ahead and subtract. 6/8 minus 4/8 will give us 2/8. And then 11 minus 5 will give us 6. Now, when we look at our answer choices, there's only one with 6, and that would be answer choice B. But we notice that 2/8 and 1/4 are not the same thing. So we're going to have to simplify. What can we divide both 2 and 8 by? We can divide them both by 2. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and when we simplify, we'll get 6 and 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. 6 and 1/4, which is the same as answer choice B. Number 3, Camila plans to sell soda to raise money for charity. She plans to sell 160 sodas. 2/5 of the sodas are Sprite, 3/10 of the sodas are Dr. Pepper, 1/4 of the sodas are Big Red, and the rest of the sodas are Coke. How many of the sodas are Coke? So once again, pause if you'd like to solve it on your own, and then go ahead and click play when you're ready to resume. So the first thing we have to know is, what is 2/5 of the sodas mean? Well, whenever we have 2/5 of something, 3/10 of something, 1/4 of something, that's going to be a clue for multiplication. So once again, we have to ask ourselves, what is the question asking? Well, it's asking how many of the sodas are Coke. So right here it's telling us the rest of the sodas are Coke. It's not telling us. We have to figure this out. And the way we're going to do that is the same way we would do this hypothetical problem. Let's say there's 10 bars of chocolate. We know that 2 of them are Hershey's, 3 are Wonka, and the rest are Twix. Well, how would we solve that? If we have 10, 2 of them are Hershey's, so that leaves 8. 3 of them are Wonka bars, so that leaves 5. So the rest of the Twix, there would be 5 of them, and it'd have to add up to 10. But what we did is we subtracted the amounts we know. The problem is we don't know what 2/5 of 160 is yet. We know that we would subtract out these Sprites, we would subtract out the Dr. Pepper, we would subtract out the Big Red, and then we'd be left with the Coke. But what we have to do is we have to find out what is 2/5 of 160. So once again, that 2/5 of something is a multiplication. So if we're going to go ahead and solve this, we're going to multiply by the top and then divide by the bottom. So 160 times 2 will give us 320 over 5. And then we have to divide 320 by 5. So top number in, bottom number out. 5 goes into 3 0 times. 5 goes into 32 6 times. And 5 goes into 20 4 times. So what we know is if 2/5 of the sodas are Sprite, 2/5 of 160 is 64. So really, I'm going to change this to 64 of the sodas are Sprite. And if you want to pause again right here, if you kind of understand what we're doing now, then you can do the same steps for here and here. If you're going to keep following. So now we know that 3/10 of the sodas are Dr. Pepper. So how many sodas do we have? 160 times 3 over 10. And we're going to follow the same steps. Multiply by the top, then divide that by the bottom. So 160 times 3 will give us 480 over 10. Then we're going to divide 480 divided by 10. That goes in 4 times. And that goes in 8 times. So what we're left with is 48. So 3/10 of 160 is actually 48. We're going to do the same thing for the Big Red. So 1/4 of. So 160 times 1/4. Multiply by the top is 160, and then divide by the bottom. So 160 divided by 4 is 40. So now here's where this multi-step problem comes into play. We have 160 total sodas. We're going to take away 64 of them because that's Sprite. We're going to take away 48 because that's Dr. Pepper. And then we're going to take away 40 because those are Big Red. And the ones that are left over will be the 160, and I take away the 64 Sprites, I'm left with 96 sodas. Then if I take away the 48 Dr. Peppers, I'm left with 48 sodas. Then if I take away the 40 Big Reds, I'm left with 8 sodas. So if the rest of the sodas are Coke, only 8 of them are Coke. What is the value of -4 times 1 8/10? Once again, pause if you'd like to try this on multiplication rules. We have a negative times a positive. So a negative times a positive, the answer will be a negative. So I can start there. I know that it has to be a negative. Now all I have to do is 4 times 1.8. Four times 1 is 4 with 1 extra 0.